Hello everybody and welcome to the Isolation Conversation with me, Mark Stokes, a series of videos designed to discuss all things digital whilst working remotely in isolation. Welcome to the Isolation Conversation episode 5. Today we're talking all about developers. I've got some pretty awesome guests in Vesa, Wictor and Geeta, and we're going to be talking about a transition from an office-based developer or developer team to a home-based setup. There's going to be a good conversation around how developers work, how they operate, and also about how they can work together effectively in their teams, and maybe what tools are available to facilitate that. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So I'm here with Vesa, Wictor and Geeta, and as I said before, we're going to talk about teams, remote development and how we can enable developers. So what I'll do, go round table first, get everyone to do a quick introduction, explain who they are, what they do, maybe something new that you've learned this week, and then we'll get straight into the conversation. So who wants to go first?
Sure, I'll start then. Usually last week we go down by the name, so I'll take the opportunity to start here. So Victor Wilen, work for Avanade. I'm our global innovation lead for Modern Workplace. Long time, I think 10-year-old, not 10-year-old, but been SharePoint MVP for 10 years. And have a long history in development. Nowadays, I don't do development, but I think the fun thing about, as you asked me to say, the last few weeks, I actually been writing code, and I had so much fun. And it's real code, not just the demonstration code. Yeah, so some of it are, but and I actually learned quite a lot and introduced quite a few new technologies and those kind of things here. So I've had super fun over the last few weeks.
Nice. Maybe we'll get into what you've actually been working on.
Yeah.
I think from some of the stuff you post, I can probably guess what you've been looking at. Vesa?
Yeah, so I'm a principal program manager from the OneDrive SharePoint platform team, and also so I'm responsible of some of the features in SharePoint framework and the dev platform. All of the classic SharePoint questions always falls on me. I was actually earlier today, for a random side topic, I was answering some features farm solution specific questions for engineering earlier today, which was fun stuff from like a decade ago. But I also run the Microsoft 365 the Microsoft 365 Patterns and Practices initiative, where we have different kind of projects like Yo Teams, which Wictor is running, is under that umbrella as well, and been working remotely for 6 years already. So.
No.
Haven't learned anything probably new this week. There's so many things. I was trying to figure out what have I learned. Every single day you learn new stuff, but it's just
true.
It's day after day. It feels like a Groundhog Day right now, but everybody can probably relate on that. So
yeah. We can go with relearning farm solutions, thanks. I'm sure we've all forcibly. Cool. Geeta?
I'm Geetha, and I am a Microsoft Business Applications MVP. I am also a custom app dev and collaboration consultant with Artis Consulting, based out of Dallas, Texas. So last week, I would say, just this whole several weeks, I've learned that quarantine remote work is definitely not equal to remote work. And I think another fun thing I've learned in the past week is that we have a lot less laundry to do at home because everybody's getting more comfortable, working mostly in jammies. So I'm happy with that. Yeah. A lot less folding, a lot less laundry to do, so I'm enjoying that.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a really interesting point, actually. I think from our household, I've got 2 young children, a 4-year-old and a about to turn 2 tomorrow, and the amount of housework, the cleaning, the dog hairs and everything, because the dog's not being clipped, so the food, the way to get through, is so much more. But actually, the washing, to be honest, I think we do about 3 loads of washing a day anyway, so that's probably
yeah, well, that makes a difference. You don't have pets yet, but
nice. But I think you're right, though. I think this is something I've learned. This is the 5th episode I've done now, and I think one message that's come through, I have a lot of people on here who are long-time remote workers, but even the people who are used to working from home are realizing and feeling that this is different, even though technically for those guys, like yourselves, nothing's really changed for you, but it has. That's something that's definitely been quite key. I think we've come to see that. So that's a good place to start, actually, I guess. So maybe give a background on just developers anyway. So I'm interested in a lot around developers who have gone from a team-based environment, maybe in an office, and then to making the transition to working from home. So I guess from your own businesses, what's that look like? Maybe not yourselves, I know you guys might be home working, but for the people you work with, how have you found that transition generally?
So I would say we are quite fortunate, all of us. The industry we work in is fairly easy within quotes to move to remote working compared to a lot of other industries. So of course we are fortunate in that way, and we all have been working with sort of Microsoft technologies and those kind of working with everything from OCS to Skype to you name it, and Teams now. So we're already used to those kind of things, where some industries aren't that at all. I'm just looking at my wife. We created a new office for her upstairs a couple of weeks ago when she moved work from home, and she'd never done that before, and their organization weren't prepared for this at all. Yeah. So that was so big change for everything they had to do was different. But I think the way I've been working, the way we were working at Avanade, we are a global company. I have developer teams in India. I'm working currently in projects in Canada. So we are used to this, both working across time zones. Of course, we used to travel and to meet with the clients once in a while. We don't do that anymore. But I would say we were pretty well prepared compared to a lot of others. So that's why I think we're fortunate. But yes, it's a big difference, and specifically when you're working with clients who aren't in that client interaction and having those kind of workshops with them. That's very different compared to when we're speccing out a new feature or whatnot. The actual build part, we can use or are using DevOps and those kind of things, but sitting down with the client and deciding how do we want this application to look like, its features to work, how do we do tests, how do we go through those kind of reports, etc. That is the most complicated thing, those kind of workshop scenarios, I would say.
You have to agree with Wictor in the sense that we're used to all these tool sets, so it kind of makes it easy to continue using it and extending it based on our needs. But for me, coming from a developer background, there's that tinge of physicality that you miss being in person, especially like walking up to a peer, grabbing a room and whiteboarding and, just getting some kind of a peer review done. All that is something.
There's a whiteboard.
So you miss that a little bit, because now it's like you have to make sure the person is available. You have to check in their calendar, set up a meeting, or, there's always this where you can just jump on a call and do it. But I think, that's just one of those things that you have to kind of work through, and there are tools that's available. This Visual Studio Live Share that helps you do some joint debugging. So it kind of keeps you close to the in-person, physicality of things, but at least, it makes it easier to collaborate on work that you're doing. So that's just, that's one of those tools that I'm sure developers are, using a lot, just to keep that momentum going while you're building things.
I love that live share feature. I remember the first time, probably about a year ago, when I first saw it in Visual Studio, and I was blown away. Like I'm one of the people who isn't easily blown away by stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. But I saw that work and I was like, that actually works really well. It really does. That's a great feature. Yeah.
And now on Microsoft side, it's been actually really interesting to see. So in the past, I was always the exception. I was the PM who was on a screen calling in remotely, and 25 people in the room. But now everybody is calling remotely. So it's interesting to see, for me, obviously not a massive change, but how the organization and our PM teams are now adapting and then learning the new ways of communicating. Inside of Microsoft, it's been really interesting to also see how we are prioritizing certain features and capabilities based on now this transition. Obviously, they were all in the backlog, but maybe the transition or the situation forced certain things to get prioritized. Just simple things like the raising hand in Teams, which will come out pretty soon, which we are testing internally. Super valuable thing when you have 25 people in a call, and all of those things. And obviously, Teams features are being prioritized. The other thing, what's been really interesting to see is from an engineering perspective, so from a coding, actually writing code for SharePoint Online or Microsoft 365 in general, there were certain capabilities still before this first home working, which required people to be in Redmond. All of that is now getting fixed. So basically, there is zero reasons anymore, obviously, because there cannot be anymore. But there used to be we were saying that we are kind of obviously people can work remotely. I'm a good example of that, but there was still certain set of things which just didn't work. You needed to be in the Redmond office. All of that is now getting fixed, which is awesome, and that forces also then the organization to learn.
So without getting into details on what they are and if they're sensitive or not, but what kind of things were they that are keeping people there? Is that to do with security and
yes. So mainly things
you don't want to leave.
Yeah. So mainly things related on authentication, security. Maybe we didn't allow certain access points to get accessed if you were using Azure AD assigned computers, even though it is secure, but it has never been just allowed because it was never needed to be enabled. Now this situation is forcing all of these engineers and PMs and everybody else to basically work remotely from home. So we need to get all of that fixed as well. And then that actually brings benefits for the partner ecosystem and customer ecosystem, because then it enables them to use the same tooling as well more efficiently later on.
Yeah, we have some sort of similar situation with specifically our offshore teams in India. They have secure base for certain accounts and projects, etc., where they have locked rooms and not connected to anything but that client, and moving that from. And they typically don't have laptops either, so they have stationary machines. Yeah. So that was a big change in moving those teams from the way they worked. Excuse my kids running in and out here.
That's family first, always.
So, but moving that from those secure base with stationary machines and handing out. Ensuring that they can get secure laptops and work from home, the internet connectivity, so they actually have that at home as well and working properly. So it's a lot of change when it comes to that in those areas. And there are some projects that require physical space to be there due to security requirements. But I think we're working out those kind of things, and also moving that security from those kind of brick walls into more agile ways of using that. So the security, I would say, if our teams have been spending time on something over the last few weeks, it's security on the remote working and those kind of things. And everyone is looking over that right now.
Yeah, it's fascinating how this kind of environment enables that. And I do liken it a lot, and I have done in the past too, to the innovation that you see in wartime periods. So we tend to find that through wartime periods, you get a massive growth of innovation and technological development because you're forced to and you have to. And I feel that people are doing that now. Like, you never normally would make that investment to enable that kind of security until you're in a situation like this. And we're seeing it. What first raised that for me was seeing the message center updates on Microsoft's readiness for Office 365, talking about the data centers, things like that. There's a lot of stuff there that's super secure, super card password protected, only certain people getting physical access to server things. But again, the ability to enable some of that with the new normal is forcing those expect the advancements in enabling that to be done. So I'm seeing a lot of progress like that as well, and I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
Also from a hardware perspective, it's also from like a hardware perspective, just to, like, I'm used to having multiple monitors or screens, to be able to, just distribute the work across, being able to refer things. And so I think our organization was kind enough to let us know before the lockdown, like, come and get your monitors. You're free to come grab it, take it home, because it gets hard when you have multiple people working remotely at home because there's, sparsity of hardware. So I think that's definitely something where organizations help their employees by letting them take their hardwares and continue to work.
And another good example of that, and I can see you, Mark, you have sort of a real proper chair there, and there's a lot of people that don't have a proper chair. I'm like standing all days, but we just introduced here at Avanade Sweden that we help you rent a chair, a proper office chair for this time being as well. So you can
very nice.
Yeah, for the ergonomic kind of things, and instead of you sitting in it's fun the first week sitting in the sofa and doing all that kind of stuff. But after a couple of weeks, you can't do that, and that's why I have a standing desk, because that's how I work. I don't have a chair. It works best for me.
Oh yeah.
That's something that we've had in the last week, and that's been vital. Is some of our guys are a bit young, they have small bedrooms, some live with the parents still, some are a bit older. You're right, so people who don't have that space to set up, we've over the last week, before we said, come and get what you need, come and get your VR headsets, come and get your monitors, get what you need, get your chair if you need to do it. And but as you said, for the first couple of weeks, people have been making do, but I also feel that we have a responsibility of employers to make sure their health and safety is right. Every year we go through DSE regulations to make sure people's seating position is right, their monitors are the right height, and we make sure we do that to protect their health and safety. One guy we had was getting cramps in his hands because he wasn't sitting in the right place, his desk wasn't set up right, so we've had to go through those same processes to make sure they do it. One guy just doesn't have space in his room to be able to set that up. So we've had people coming up with ideas of raising an ironing board up and working on the ironing board, so they've got a standing desk for a little bit, but then they can put it down at the end of the day and go. This is a massive issue that we've had on facilitating that for people. And as you get to larger businesses, it's more difficult to manage that as well.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people, and if you look at the step counter you have and whatnot, you're not walking nearly as much as previous. You don't walk to get coffee that long, or the conference room and those kind of things. So that makes you also sit down in your chair or in your place or whatever you sit for many more hours than you used to. And if you're like me, when I started working from home, I got a couple of extra hours per day to work because I don't commute and those kind of things.
Yep.
And when you start doing remote working, you use that time, and even though you work 9 to 5, you probably work 12 hours. You don't notice that until your body tells you otherwise, so to say. Yeah. And so that's when I do so. Talk to my colleagues and the people I manage. Talk to them about go out there and do exercise. And fortunately here in Sweden, we're allowed to go out and do that. So I do mountain biking a couple of days a week just because I need to do that to be fresh.
This comes in a little bit to developers then. So a topic that I'm very interested in is through the series is around mental health. So and actually how that affects people who are not used to being at home. I think developers can be a bit of a special breed. I think we know that. So I guess it's a slightly different conversation to what we've normally had with normal employees and workers. But there is the point as well, I think, where developers can be sometimes quite reclusive, sometimes anti-exercise, not always, but I guess as a stereotype, and I think there is a certain truth in a lot of cases. So a big focus for us as well, it has been pushing people to get out and do their work. And we actually have a little survey, a little adaptive card that goes around 3 times a week. Just rate how you're feeling, 1 to 10, are you feeling a bit meh, or are you feeling pretty good? And when do you last get out for exercise? And sends a message, because we're not in the same room, we can't see and analyze if people are getting into a bit of a bad mental state. So it gives us a bit of feedback. It's optional, of course. The data's destroyed at the end of it after a certain time, but it's getting people out. In our office, I have my dog in the office normally, and we go for a walk every single lunchtime. Just take the dog out, just 10-15 minutes. Everyone comes out with us in a big group walk. They're not doing that now because there's no need to. So we have to push people to do that, and we are seeing it affects the mental health slightly. So it's really pushing them, and I guess developers on that can work some quite strange hours if you leave them to it. So we're trying to make sure that we keep them to normal working hours and not up till 3-4 in the morning and then being bad in the morning when they need to be on call. So how are you finding this with your teams, like from a developer specifically? Is it affected their mental health in a similar way, or how are you managing their day?
So if I look into sort of the people I manage directly, and I increased the number of touch points I have with them because I don't see them or run by them in the office, or so the number of sort of 50-minute call only. If it takes 5 minutes, it's fine, just to have that video conference. And I deliberately also scheduled them in the morning, so they get up, and actually before they start their normal meetings, and they should start their normal meetings, just so they get up and those kind of things. So that is my way of being sort of a remote manager, being able to more touch points and having just a chit chat about what they've been doing and et cetera, and not a formal kind of manager talk, but just as a friend and colleague being out there. And we also been organizing, like a lot of people do, sort of this kind of virtual afterworks and those kind of things, funny hat contests and those kind of things, just to have some fun together.
Yep. Yeah, that's been a throughout.
Yeah, I have to admit, there's been a little bit of a tinge of burnout, right? I mean, it's not the volume of work you do or the type of work you're doing. It's just everything added up. Like you have kids at home, there's virtual schooling, there's, all those additional responsibilities and dependencies that you have. It's not like you can separate out your 8 to 5 p.m. for work without any distraction. So, I notice myself working a lot. I start my day a lot earlier in the day before the kids wake up, and then, continue to do the work. And then can maybe take breaks in between during lunch and maybe 10 to 15 minutes break between lunchtime and the rest of, towards later in the noon. So you take a break for yourself, and also you have time to spend time with the family. It's not like they feel neglected as well. And then just from an organization perspective too, I feel like, at least with Artis Consulting, they've been doing a great job of effective communication, kind of, alludes to what Wictor mentioned, making sure that it's more of an open door policy. You can always go in and, grab anyone and talk. If you just need it some few minutes away, just grab someone, just talk to them, just, ping them, just find out if they can jump on a call with you. And then, we've been using Yammer a lot for all of our fun collaborations. A peer of mine started a thread on dad jokes. So it kind of just helps start your day in a fun way. I just go look at it. It's kind of also become one of those tools that I use during my break time. I go to Yammer, look at our company network, see what's happening, and it's also just from a company level. You share what's happening, what's in the pipeline, what kind of projects, what to expect, and what we have currently going on. And it helps you to know what other teams are working on. It helps you to know what's happening around the organization, because earlier you had, it could be a hallway conversation and you were able to know what's happening with your peers and friends at work. But now it's more like you have to rely on these tools, and the more you make use of these tools for effective communication, it just makes it more easier on the person who's at the receiving end. You still feel like you're part of it.
Sure. And I think that's probably one of the key, let's say, chains for a lot of the people, is that we need to use, this is the social way of communicating. This is the social, the daily social, let's say, adaptation which you have. You don't have the physical people. You can't actually see. You only see the face, and so to say, as well. But I think, and it takes time for people to actually adapt on that. In Microsoft side, we were, let's say, lucky enough. It is a large company, and from day one, the management basically has been saying that if you need time off, you'll take time off. If you need anything, you will get you that, up to and every single level of the company. But it is pretty unique. It is and we can do that. And I think it was publicly quoted already that we were offered 12 weeks of parental leave if you have kids. With paid parental leave if you're employed in Microsoft, which is pretty unique. And that the whole point of that one is that, and our management keep on actually saying this, is that when the situation is going to go away, we do not want people to be burned out at that moment. We want people to be able to actually be ready to go, fresh, and let's now start building the new stuff, which is actually an awesome approach. But then at the same time, if we think about the industry overall, the partner ecosystem, everything, a lot of partners are suffering because a lot of the projects are getting canceled, and that increases the stress as well. So it's not like you can just get people on a paid leave for 4 months to wait until the situation goes away. So it's a really interesting balance, and I think it's highly stressful for a lot of the people in the community, and even personally as a Microsoft employee, it's not about just thinking about Microsoft, because the stress gets you. It does get you, and like we said when we started the call, working remotely is different than working remotely in quarantine or within the current situation. This is not working remotely. This is something unique. And hopefully we will learn from this.
Yes, and absolutely. If we think about sort of developers, and then as you said, we are a special breed. Some of us are. But there's one thing that I discovered that is super important, and specifically we take a look at the sort of the young developers that are coming into this that perhaps haven't that many projects in the baggage, don't not that much experience, sometimes being a little bit introvert. Those are if you're working in that landscape or sitting in that project room, etc., you look over their shoulder and you can see, hey, he's been struggling or she's been struggling with that problem for some time. I just sit down 5 minutes and help him or her out. You can't do that right now. Yep. And that is, I would think, I haven't measured or anything, but I would think that it can be a big issue, because you could sort of go into your own cocoon trying to figure out that problem, and you're too shy to ask sometimes if you're new or whatever, and then you get frustrated, and that will actually go both to your sort of your head, but also to your confidence in those kind of things. So do you have an idea how to sort of pick up those persons more than having pinging them every 15 minutes and asking them how they're doing? But then you're getting annoying, right? So I think
we do actually. Yeah, we've actually come across this ourselves, and we're a much smaller organisation. Our team's small, but we face the same issues, and this is why we've always maintained an office. We've never needed to, but we've always chosen to have those people in that way. I think there's a couple of points interesting here. One is, I think you mentioned the younger generation. I find they tend to be happier with text chat, Teams chat, Discord chats, things like that they're used to. There's a generational thing. They're more happier to contribute their emotions more over those forums than maybe as the bit more middle-aged and some more older people might be. Oh God, I called us middle-aged, sorry. Not you, Geeta. So they tend to be more comfortable to be open, and even more open on those than they might be. But you're right, there's micro gestures, the little things that you see that you don't notice otherwise. So one thing that we've actually started to do is for a couple of hours a day or half a day or whatever it is, we just leave a Teams chat voice conversation running in the background. It's just there. So we don't talk, we don't discuss anything. It's not a meeting, but sometimes we just leave that voice channel running. Everyone's on it, and you just have a little chit chat. You just know someone's there, and if you hear someone grunting and groaning because they're fed up and they can't get some work, and you can just ping them and reach out, a quick screen share. So we find just leaving that voice chat open with a small number of people, 4 or 5 people maybe, is enough just to feel like there's an office, feel like someone else is there, and you can just have a quick chat. And we found that has really helped bring everyone together and understand when people are in that situation where they're struggling. That's what we've done the last couple of weeks, and that's really, really helped us out. I think you can't do that en masse with a team of 20 or 50 developers, obviously, but those small groups, and then they can still work together if they're stuck on something.
Yeah, I've been doing similar things previously, but that was when we sort of had a team in India. We had a camera in the room, and they sat there. We had our conference room and the camera. And we sat essentially a couple of hours working and just throwing things out in the air. So, but not as you Spain. But that's a good idea. Probably should think about that for some scenarios.
It's our younger guys who came up with it. They suggested it right at the beginning, saying, well, those two themselves who initiated the idea said they'd just had a Discord chat open between them before we even suggested it. And then the mention was, that's a great idea.
That is a great idea. That's an awesome idea. And you could potentially even keep the video open, but then people forget about the video and then you do something funny. And okay, so that's exactly. So
not waving to turn the lights back on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's good. I mean, it comes into mental health. It's a big thing. I think we have a big obligation to maintain the mental health, make sure people are okay. I do find it's harder to do that, and also I think there are ways. It's interesting that this is episode 5 now. It's the first time anyone's mentioned Yammer, so thank you.
Definitely increased adoption of Yammer during this time, for sure.
I think it's also enabled us to use the tools more ourselves. Like we go out, we promote it, we push the tools. We do kind of use them, but we've been forced to use the tools more ourselves as well. Because like I say, we're a smaller business compared to larger businesses, so we've been forced to use Teams more. We used to use consumer Skype as a primary channel. We moved everyone back into Teams. It works nicely. But yeah, task management and allocating and managing work of employees, that's something that's been interesting to us as well. So I guess there's a question, maybe it's not changed how you guys work so much because you do remote teams, but how do you manage tasks and workload and ensure people are actually achieving and they're not just taking advantage of sitting and doing nothing, pretending they're working?
Well, at least in our side, it is just DevOps and being DevOps for many, many years already. And then people are being rather measured on their outcomes rather than the fact that they're sitting in their chair. Well, obviously, I'm in a unique situation working from home, and I pretty independently. But from a developer perspective, that's what we're being measuring. Making sure that things are moving, there's a priorities, and if something gets stuck, then we start obviously asking questions. Can we help, or should we move it to another person and move forward from there? So.
Yeah, I would say so. Task management wise hasn't changed that much. It's Azure DevOps. Yeah. Perhaps more people are getting into it, so sort of getting more of the stakeholder persons into the DevOps right now. So I think that's a good thing. But one task or area of task management that I've seen a huge adoption over the last 2-3 weeks is sort of tasks in Office documents. Previously, you sort of went over and knocked someone on the shoulder, hey, can you take a look at this sentence or help me with this? How does that picture look like? So everyone is mentioning people in documents now. Of course, it's a feature, but I see that, and it's really good as well.
Yeah.
I need help on this specific slide, and that typically you walked over to someone, hey, can you take a look at this one? But now you just nudge someone or ping someone through the Office application. I think that's perfect, and it's a really good, creates extra value, and it makes me more efficient.
Yeah, it definitely keeps context of where you are too, because with all the mentioning within the Office, you don't have to navigate away from what you're doing. You're already working with those tool sets. It just maintains that context. And DevOps is definitely one of those tools that's stayed, and I think will just remain to be the biggest tools for helping developers keep track of what they're doing, and also have a way to know, what work is being committed, and what's left for them to look at, and things like that. That's definitely one of the, and from a personal task management perspective, I've been using a lot of Microsoft To Do to set those assign tasks to myself, and I've learned that I don't force myself too much on daily tasks, like daily tasks, and because your workday kind of blends with work and play, it doesn't really kind of bleeds over to the next day. So kind of keeping more milestones in a way that they're manageable, they're midterm and long term, rather than just, it gives you that sense of satisfaction when you go to Microsoft To Do and mark it as complete. That little music is like, it's music to your ears when you hear that. But then now you realize that, okay, it's not possible for me I don't force it. Just don't, just go with the flow, just get them going, just keep those milestones for midterm and long term, rather than just trying to get them done all in a day.
Yeah, and I agree on that on the personal tasks, and I used to do as well, but that's more sort of a long-term, medium to long-term thing. For the daily tasks, the only thing to make me actually do stuff and also have time to do stuff is actually put them in the calendar. If they're not in half an hour booked in my day, I will not have time, because someone will find that 15 minutes and book it. So that's my task management, my immediate task management. That is booking calendar meetings.
Yeah, that's been my lifeline for many, many years. So I'm just watching my calendar here, which says sleeping, homeschooling, family time. So only way to manage this multi-time zone world. And I just recently, as today, somebody told me that you're the only guy who actually has your sleeping times in the calendar, but it doesn't work otherwise. It's just
you and me work with Pacific time zones quite a lot, so a lot of our meetings start at 4, 5, 6 p.m.
Yes. Yes, that's
dinner time.
That's my meeting time is from 4 to 5 until 11, around that.
And at times like this, you do need visibility. I mean, it helps with visibility into someone's work schedule. So, someone might take a late lunch, someone might take an early lunch. You just know when not to go, bother them, and, when to actually use their time effectively.
There's actually two things that Microsoft has totally missed when it comes to this. When we're talking about task management and calendars. Listening. First of all, we have tasks everywhere, right? To do, planner, DevOps, I don't know, in the Office documents, one good way of doing that. So dealing with that is a problem, because some prefer to use Planner instead, and then you get an email, okay, I was assigned a Planner task somewhere. And of course, that doesn't end up on the agenda. Another thing is the calendar. So I have one personal calendar and then one work calendar. And there's a lot of things, specifically around sort of the PMP stuff, goes into my personal calendar. So I need to go and double book that into my work calendar. So having way to merge calendar automatically, that could solve a lot of my double booking issues, I would say.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a really good point there, actually. And so I'm going to put down the bottle of Kool-Aid here at the moment. And one thing that you mentioned before was bringing stakeholders into DevOps tasks. That's actually moved us off of DevOps. So our development teams were using DevOps to manage tasks and things for a while. And they thought it was great, could tag it against code changes, brilliant, loved it. But as soon as wanted to bring stakeholders in to talk about backlog items and requirements and things like that, they hated it. They hate the interface. They can't work with it. It feels too complicated. It's like CRM is to non-sales people. They just couldn't work. So we actually had to pull out of DevOps for our backlog items, and just because of the UI, really. So we tried to move to Planner. Planner didn't really work for the volume of the stuff there. So unfortunately, we've actually moved to Monday.com, because everybody feels comfortable there. The developers are comfortable there. Our support tickets now in there. The sales are in there. Across the whole organization, that's actually proved to be a need. Vesa's getting very uncomfortable now. So we used Trello for a while, but from the developers, DevOps was great. But as soon as we brought stakeholders in, we struggled with it, so we've had to pull it out. And I tried to duplicate using automation, things like that, but it didn't really work right. So, but task management is an important thing. The other topic we've mentioned there, which has been common through all these episodes, is And I think the developer audience is better at this anyway, because we are used to DevOps and task management and things like that normally. But for the wider business, what we're seeing across these episodes is actually changing that way of managing people, so focus more on delivery. If you've delivered these tasks in a week, you've probably done a week's worth of work. Don't necessarily care when you do it, as long as you're accessible. But I think that's been a harder transition for non-developer people across the business, because a lot of managers think, well, if the bum's on the seat 9 till 5, they've probably done a day's work. Well, not really. They've probably been on Facebook for the whole day. But better way to manage. I think we're better set up already to make sure our people are still delivering and other parts of the business have been.
Which will then hopefully transition the rest of the world to the similar direction as well. Yep. Because I think we're so obviously sooner or later the situation is going to go away. Sure, there will be implications. Sure, there will be everything else. But the learnings from this will be most likely tremendous. It will be before Corona and after Corona, from a timing perspective. We can already see that, which is kind of cool as well. Massive opportunities and innovation options at the same time. But it's one of those things where we've kind of, wrong way of maybe saying this, but we're lucky enough to have the technology already at the right maturity level that we're able to deal with this. Like Wictor said when we started this. So we are able to actually make normal office businesses from home and run normal office business from home. But then learning from this, even for the future, there's multiple dimensions. There's are we willing to recruit remote people? Are we willing to get people who are working mainly from home? Are we forcing people to come to the office? What's going to happen with all of the office buildings? What's with that? And so it's really interesting to see. And when will that?
So habits are very difficult to change. So it would be very easy to have all these epiphanies of how we should work going forward and how we can enable it. But it's the obvious result will be, as soon as people go back to the office, we slip back into old habits. So how long do we need to be locked down in quarantine to change working habits for the long term?
I think we're closing in that one right now in certain areas at least. I already know a lot of people that will, I wouldn't say work 100% from home, but spend at least a day or two working from home because they've seen the benefits of that. So I'm pretty sure that we are sort of, there's quite a few that are looking over that option right now to see. And as you mentioned as well, Vesa, so what about the offices and real estates there? I think that the commercial real estate business should be quite scared now. There's a lot of people that it will change everything. So just assume that 10% more work from home. That's 10% less office space. And that's a huge implication on the whole financial business as well. So it will be super interesting to follow going forward.
It works the opposite way though as well, doesn't it? It's made us realize that we don't need as much office space. It's made us realize we don't need to travel as much. But I think it's also made us realize we do need office space and we do need to travel. There are times that 100% working from home isn't good for people's mental health. Therefore, the office is still beneficial to give the social and community side of it, and travel is still important because we still need to be in a room to do those workshops. Video recording is great, but there's just that little bit too much latency to really engage and really, get people's body. My arms are crossed off camera, you can't quite see it. So it makes us realise that we do still need the physical presence. We're not yet ready for 100%.
No, absolutely not. But I think there will be some intermediate kind of way there, and people will find that opportunity. Yeah, I can actually work from home. I don't have to drag myself into the office when I'm feeling a little bit cold or it's down today or whatever. So, and those scenarios, and hopefully, actually, I've had clients and know companies that didn't allow work from home previously. You had to be in the office, otherwise you couldn't connect. They didn't have VPN or anything like that. So, and they had changed, and now they actually opened up for that possibility for the employees. So, it's going to be interesting.
Definitely. So I think we're running about 40 minutes, so we'll kind of tie up, I think, before we run on too long. But just to close out, I'd be interested just to get some top tips, so from experience of working from home. So if people are working from home for the first time, what maybe some top tips that you can give them to keep being effective and
So what I said to my colleagues when they started doing that, and actually made me always laugh a little bit when I saw all the tweets when people started working from home, and you mentioned it as well, Geeta, about working in your pajamas. And those kind of things. It's fun for the first few weeks, but to get into my work mode, my office mode, so to say, I have to put some proper clothes on. I actually, to be honest, I do the first hour in my robe and before I have my breakfast and go through the email and those kind of things. But I put my stuff on, and sometimes I even wear a shirt if I'm going to be in a lot of meetings with clients and those kind of things. So I feel that I'm in the office mode. And I think that's the best way for you to actually shift between work mode and being the dad mode, so to say, when you're going out. Yeah, today I have a cap on, but those kind of things, small things that, so you know when you're actually in your office. The same kind of thing, if you have the opportunity to have an office space at home, make a proper office and consider that your working room location.
Yep. And I think for me, it would be more of setting up a good routine, just identifying what times work best for you and for those around you, and making sure that there's visibility for your team so they are aware of, what your active work times are and times that you're going to be stepping out and things like that. And also, just not forcing yourself on any daily goals or, short-term goals, just keep them a little bit more flexible and kind of get comfortable with the fact that it's okay for tasks to bleed over a little bit over the next week, but it's more of what you get accomplished for the week or, the next 3 days on a whole, rather than trying to see what you've done per day.
I'm going to pick up there. I know we're kind of in a closing up bit, but that's actually a very good point there. So expecting that you may not get your tasks done. We may have interruptions. We've got our kids at home. We all know that kids of all ages can not work to routines as effectively as we might like them to. Do you think customers are more accepting of things overrunning because people have the commitment?
Yeah, I think that's one of the good things that have come out of this. I mean, not from the situation, but from the remote working situation, that everybody's on the same boat. So, everybody's going through the same thing. So, I mean, at least the customers that I've been working with, they've all been very flexible and they understand each other. I mean, there's no one's micromanaging or no one's expecting unrealistic deliverables. Everyone understands, and they've kind of left it up to us to let them know what timelines we can meet. And so I think that's a good big benefit, because everybody knows exactly what it feels like to be in your shoes.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, anyway, I thought that's an interesting point. Back to top tips. So any other top tips, Vesa? Any thoughts?
Well, so it basically following up on what Geeta was saying, that the number one thing is allow yourself not to be as efficient, not be as productive as you've been in the past. That's the number one thing. So situation is what it is. I think everybody realizes what it is. Lower down their stress levels. Try to concentrate on family always first, and then figure out the things what you can do. Nobody should be expecting people to truly execute right now. This is not the time. I would ask every single manager to kind of lay back. Give people time, because they will otherwise burn out, and the stress levels are really high due to family reasons anyway. So that's super important. And obviously ergonomics. Well, I was about to say I could chair, but then Wictor doesn't have a chair, so whatever works for you.
Good legs.
Brilliant. That's fantastic, guys. Thank you very much. I think some really good useful information there. Fascinating insights, and I think that was really interesting. So thank you very much. I think we'll let everyone go. I think it's a good 45 minutes. So I really appreciate your insights.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for joining the Isolation Conversation. Visit our website, www.thisisattollo.com, for latest information, or hit the subscribe button and the like button to make sure you never miss an episode. Whilst you're at it, if you found value in this episode, we'd really appreciate you leaving a comment below or sharing a link to the show with your friends and colleagues, and that would really help us out. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode, and until then, it's a huge thanks from me for watching.